I shared yesterday that the purpose of the church is to work with God to change the world, to do our part to help to bring his kingdom here on earth. But has the church really made any real difference in history? I mean, isn't religion the main cause of wars? Well, I certainly know some people that believe that religion is the biggest single cause of war and death in the world. And they believe that humankind would be much better off without religion. It's an argument frequently used by some atheists to justify their beliefs, but it's not true. In 2004, the BBC commissioned the Department of Peace Studies at the University of Bradford to conduct a war audit. The war audit set out to identify conflicts that were more closely linked to religious belief than to political causes, i.e. those that could most properly be called religious wars. It's a sad fact that over the centuries, against Jesus' teaching about loving your enemies, over the centuries, some terrible things have been done in the name of Christianity. However, the war audit concluded that the only wars that were fought primarily because of religious difference were the Islamic expansion beginning in the 7th century, the Crusades starting in the 11th century, and the Reformation Wars beginning in the 16th century. The war audit says that although armed conflicts may take on religious overflows, their beginnings invariably lie in factors such as ethnicity, identity, power struggles, resources, inequality, and oppression, and one factor is often exacerbated by another. The authors conclude that there have been very few genuinely religious wars in the past century. They did identify that atheistic totalitarian states perpetrated more mass murder than any state dominated by a religious faith. Stalinism claimed somewhere between 9 and 60 million victims. Maoism killed an estimated 30 to 40 million. And Hitler's regime murdered as many as 15.5 million people, including 6 million Jews. But these atrocities can't be equated with atheism any more than violence perpetrated by some terrorists today can be equated with Islam. The problem is not one of religion, but of extremists. People who will justify violent actions based on belief, ideology, race, tribe, etc., and the societies or groups that they have brought along and persuaded to go along with them. Most religions have been overwhelmingly a force for good in the world. Recently, I was watching one of the Marvel Avengers films where a team of superheroes make extraordinary efforts. They show integrity and honesty and great courage, and they heroically battled against impossible odds and yet came through at great personal cost to win. These battles may have taken place over days or weeks in their fictional world and last a couple of hours on screen, but eventually they are victorious. But in the real world, most victories take a lot longer. They're not so heroic or glamorous, and in many ways, they are much harder. Real and lasting change takes time, takes people working together, and can take generations. This sort of change is the focus of the revolutionary movement that Jesus started. This is the focus of his church. Sometimes in our small communities, we forget the bigger picture. To paraphrase J. John, we are part of a global enterprise. We have outlets in nearly every country in the world. We run hospitals and hospices and homeless shelters and orphanages. We feed the hungry. We do marriage work and parenting support. We do debt advice and bereavement support. We support countries and regions that have been badly hit by natural disasters and work for justice and reconciliation in areas of conflict. We run educational programs around the world. We founded over 4,500 schools in the UK alone. We bring communities together, we strengthen friendships and make new ones. Basically, we look after people from birth to death and in between, help them to become all that God is calling them to be. This is church. It's a huge task. It needs a big team as we work to transform the world, this work for God's kingdom. And we may gather on a Sunday, but what church is truly about happens outside of our church buildings. And despite the many times that church has got things wrong in history, and despite the many times that we still get it wrong today, God continues to work with those that will work with him to bring light and hope to a world of darkness and despair. But if the church is all about changing the world, why do we bother with worship in a church building? If God's main concern was the plight of the world, wouldn't he say, stop singing songs about me or to me and get out there and help someone? Why do we worship God? Well, we'll look at those questions tomorrow. I hope you can join us.